You look cute.
It has a horn.
Yes, it does. You want to hit it?
Doesn't work.
We'll get it to work. I think we got to turn it all on first. So I just hit 750 hours on the Kubota B26 TLB, which stands for Tractor Loader Backhoe. Did a review on this thing for you guys. The short of it, one of my favorite construction tools I've ever had. Absolutely love this thing. Now it's a smaller tractor. I mean, it's 25 horsepower tractor. It's about 4,500 pounds, give or take. And I've got to say, it's probably my favorite or one of my favorite construction machines out there. It's just an absolute beast. This is some Donkey Kong-ish right here. Right there. It'll pick up a full skid bucket. Donkey, super fuel efficient, very, very versatile. I think if you do any sort of construction, if you've got any property, if you've got a landscape business, particularly if you've got a landscape business and you've got employees, this will be like hiring two guys. Shows up to work, no issues. I've had a couple issues with it, and I'll share those with you. One of the things that attracted me to this particular model, or just the Kubota TLBs in general, was the fact that the backhoe was removable. And it's not the easiest thing in the world to remove. I mean, you've got a budget, like you're gonna be there for, you're gonna put some time into swapping it out. Like, it's not happening in 10 minutes. Some of the issues had, the legs gave out on me. Probably didn't have a great footing or, unit to keep it. Getting the backhoe off is not the easiest task, but I don't think there's any other way to do it, being that this thing like literally rides on the frame there. It's like, and then, backwards here. It's not like a 3-point hitch backhoe. So that's an immense positive. Probably a 30-minute job, and then probably another 30 minutes to put the box blade or whatever else you want to do. I've got a quick hitch that I've used for mine, so I can just, once I've got the quick hitch on, I can switch between implements. These rear remotes are brilliant. One, they're guarded really well. And two, to release them, I couldn't figure it out, but you just kind of like forward push in and it just ejects it like really nice, really smooth. So I love these rear remotes, really brilliant design. One issue I had here is this wiring harness. This wiring harness had to be redone, and they did charge me for this at 2 different times, and hopefully this time it's fixed. But I felt like that was kind of something that Kubota didn't have figured out from the factory. They probably should have. And, I've had to foot the bill on that. So here's a new B26. Mine is 2 years old at this point. See, they're trying to change this up a little bit. It's got a different feel to it. And they did make the seat. They changed the seat up a little bit. It's like a little bit more comfortable than the other one. But other than that, not too many other changes that I can visually see. It does look like they changed the ergonomics of things just a little bit. Tell you, this is a mistake from the factory, because when you turn this tire, it'll rub. I couldn't figure out for the life of me what the issue was. I had to end up taking off that resistor plate there, spark plate, whatever they want to call that. And yeah, everything else is looking pretty similar. Not a whole lot of changes here in the last 2 years. And I got this particular model because this engine, they've been making it for well over a decade. And it's no ignitions, no afterburner, no none of that, which I really, really liked. I do see that they beefed up the wheels or the rims a little bit there. I had some issues with my wheels and tires kind of coming apart. I ended up tubing them this past year just to make it a little bit better. Everything else is looking pretty identical. Did have issues with the front tires, and some of those issues with the metal underneath the battery was rotting out on me. And then one issue that I've had just around the machine is, and this was like immediate, like the first couple weeks we had it, it just, some of it, I don't know, you just see that rust kind of, it just, I don't know, I don't love it. And there's a few pieces like that where like some of the metal is not as high quality as it could be, but the design overall is pretty on point. But having the backhoe was a huge selling point for me, being that it was removable. I don't use it as much as I thought I was gonna use it. And when I've really needed to like do some serious excavation work, I've found that I just rent an excavator most of the time because it just kind of works out. But I do like the option that we do have this guy, and it's, you know, I enjoy it. Water filled the back tires just because it's a little light, and it bops around. It's 4,500 pounds, give or take, 25 horsepower. Everything on it is really pretty accessible. So when I first got it, I had an issue with it overheating. This is probably me. I was out like mowing some seriously thick stuff. I was blowing it out, but probably not as much as I should have blown it out. You got just, you know, the screen, I've got compressed air, and I think I just took my eye off the temperature gauge a little bit and I baked some of the coolant out of it. But I don't know. I mean, it only had like 105 hours on it, so it's like, Anyway, the radiator melted down. Kubota was able to fix it, but they didn't warranty it, so I was kind of like, I don't know. Like, it might have been low on coolant from the dealer, kind of like thinking back on it, and like, I probably should have stopped halfway through that project, let it cool off, just check the coolant level, make sure. But it was the first time I really pushed it, and I did have that issue. Later on in its life, like 200, 300 hours, it had rolled over on me. And that's the one thing with the B26 is it can be tipsy. All right. It's not like if you're on a slope and things like that, it's got like a narrower wheelbase. So it's not something that is going to be, you don't want to go too cavalier with it. Nonetheless, had some damage from that, and the Kubota insurance took care of it. No big deal. Like it would, so that was one of the best selling features to me about the Kubota, was the Kubota insurance is fabulous. I had a buddy who had his skid steer stolen with a mulching head on it. They replaced it, no questions asked, gave him a brand new 0-hour machine. I think he was still paying on it at the time, and his payment, like, just like he owed the same amount, but he had like a brand new machine. So the Kubota insurance, you really can't complain about too much. I mean, they were fabulous. I had a steering wheel issue, like it bent the steering rod and a couple things like that. And so Kubota insurance took care of it, and that was one of the big selling features to it. Also, the dealerships, Kubota dealerships, I've gone to several as I've traveled around the state, and they've just been great to work with. You don't necessarily always get a service truck with a Kubota dealer. My local Kubota dealer just got bought by a larger dealer, so they do have a service truck now, so that's a game changer. But if you're on sites and things like that and you need service trucks, you're gonna have to go to a private company, or you're gonna have to go with some sort of brand that you can get more service trucks with. That was one downside to it. Everything else though is really super accessible on this guy. I've got the, air filter is easy to change out, oil dipstick, coolant, battery. I had some issues with it corroding a little bit, so the metal, I pulled off the battery at one point. I sanded it down, I repainted it, just because, like, for some odd reason, that was one of the things that I had a complaint with. Was like, one of the things I would complain about with it is like some of the pieces, not all of them. Some of the attachments and implements that we have for this guy. Let's go over my favorite ones are piled back here. Landscape rake, number one. I think everybody should have one of these. If you have a tractor, super big requirement. Box blade isn't obvious, but the landscape rake is just like, it combs. A lot of people are like, oh, Trav, you're not gonna like that landscape. Like, it's my favorite implement. It's super cheap too. It's like $500-600. Box blade, standard issue. Everybody needs that. Everybody needs forks. Tree boom in my industry and what I do around my property, tree boom is super useful. I use it for, I don't know, anything really, like even picking up fuel cans and things like that, like large fuel barrels. I use that and rope things. This is a root rake. That's been super useful. And this is a dagger, but we call it a dagger. It was a custom made little deal. We use it to cut root systems when they're dormant, and then use the tree boom to pop them out, transplant them. Flail mower is a game changer. If you guys have never seen a flail mower, it's basically like a baby forestry mulcher. You can run on your tractor, and you can change out your teeth. This one right now has the duck teeth on it, and so you can kind of check those out. It's got these little duck feet. Basically, it'll mulch up like up to 3-inch material. That one's not too good, too good shape. But you can put sharper little dagger knives on it too for just regular mowing. But I bought that guy for like $2,800 from WoodMax, and that's been just an amazing attachment. Tiller as well. Another great implement. You can remember implement and attachment by if it goes on the rear of the tractor, it's an implement. If it goes on the front of the tractor, it's an attachment. And this one will run the skid steer attachments, which is great because all of those attachments there also run on the skids, which, you know, we go back and forth on, so I don't have to have like tractor attachments and then skid attachments. I can just share those attachments between the two. And then the ability to put implements on the back of a tractor, major game changer, because I don't think a lot of contractors take into account that like an implement costs 1/3 of an attachment, give or take. Like you can get an implement for literally so cheap that I think people just overlook it. Like if I were to get a flail mower, let's say, and it was an attachment item and it were to go on the front of a small skid steer or even on the front of the tractor, if the tractor had more flow, which this one doesn't, it's too small. But if it were, you're looking at least 3 times the cost, as opposed to an implement, something like that's gonna be in the $2,000 range. I bought this thing for like $1,200, like pretty much brand new. The guy had used it once, if that. I mean, and I've only used it twice. So if I were to buy a tiller for the front of a Bobcat, you know, we're looking at like 7 or 8, 9 grand. So implements are just they're such a deal, in my opinion. I think everybody should consider an implement. But a tractor, loader, backhoe, the ability to do excavation work and do skid steer type tasks, grapple work, tree work, digging, dirt, pipes, cleanup, final grades, mowing and maintenance. Like you really can't beat the tractor. And the amount of hours that you can put on a tractor, like they just run and run and run and run. So one of my biggest regrets in contracting thus far is not having bought a tractor as like probably my first purchase. Like a lot of people ask, like, what's the first machine you should buy? And skid steer is pretty typical. If you don't have a machine yet, skid steer or mini skid, probably a good move. But consider a tractor, loader, backhoe, or at least a tractor, because you can do maintenance items. You can do large property maintenance, like what's beyond there. And you can do excavation, you can do the rip out. I do rip out, landscape rip out with this time of year. And it's just, you just do everything. Also, it's like really low impact with tires, so you're not causing a lot of damage. I did have an issue with this front tire popping off the rim every now and then, which is kind of a pain in the butt, but I added some tubes to it and it looks like it's all worked itself out. So a lot of people don't take that into account, that a tractor will pretty much do most tasks